Boom! Welcome to Football Scientific. I'm Aaron Sauter, professor of football science, writer for FootballAnalysisOne.com, CFLNewsHub.com, and UFLNewsHub.com. You can check out my articles, and you'll see some great analysis of the NFL on FootballAnalysisOne.com, the CFL, Canadian Football League, on CFLNewsHub.com, and the UFL on UFLNewsHub.com. Check it out. I am joined by my co-host, Tyler the Tiger. Tyler the Tiger here. Ready to go. What are we talking about today, Professor? Well, we're going to go down and talk about some of the most recent news in the NFL, CFL, a lot of coaching interview things going on in the NFL, and there's some other drama with the Buffalo Bills and things like that. Drama? Okay. Sounds good. All right, let's break it down. Okay, here we go. So first, in the NFL, Las Vegas Raiders, they have asked for a second interview with Chargers defense coordinator Jesse Minter for their head coaching opening. Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers hired Danny Smith as their new special teams coordinator. That's good to know. Green Bay Packers released cornerback Trayvon Diggs. So Trayvon Diggs was released by the Dallas Cowboys to enter the season, and you had to pay a high price tag to sign him. And it was going to be expensive to re-sign him. The Packers picked him up for the postseason, but then they've decided to release him. They're moving on from him. Pittsburgh Steelers, they have completed an in-person interview with Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores for their head coaching job. Boom. Las Vegas Raiders, they're also going to do a second interview with Panthers defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. LA Chargers, former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel has officially accepted their job as a new offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers. So Mike McDaniel is off the table in terms of coaching candidates. He's going to be offensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh at the Los Angeles Chargers. Buffalo Bills have decided to submit requests to interview Washington Commanders defensive coordinator Anthony Lynn, who at one time worked for the Buffalo Bills. Are scheduled to interview Lynn for the Bills' head coaching position. Okay. Next, Buffalo Bills. They've also requested to meet former offense coordinator Brian Dable for their head coaching position. They're just kind of going through the obvious people, I guess. Buffalo Bills owner Terry Pegula stirred some people up today by saying that the reason why they fired Sean McDermott was because the coaching staff pushed for the team to draft Keon Coleman. It wasn't Brandon Beane's idea. He just went with it to keep the coaching staff happy. But it turns out that Keon Coleman was a bust, and the Buffalo Bills lost in the playoffs, and now they're firing Sean McDermott because of Keon Coleman, and that's why Brandon Beane got a promotion. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? It's pretty crazy. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've completed an interview with Cincinnati Bengals offense coordinator Dan Pitcher for their offense coordinator position. Seems like a lateral move. Atlanta Falcons have submitted a request to interview Josh Williams, who's the director of scouting for the 49ers for their GM position. They've also requested to interview Ian Cunningham, who's the Bears assistant general manager. They've also requested to interview Steelers assistant general manager Andy Weidel, okay, for their GM spots. So they're looking for all these spots for their new GM. Buffalo Bills GM Brandon Beane said basically Josh Allen needs an operation on his foot due to a foot injury, but he thinks he'll be ready for OTAs. Okay. Next, we have some CFL. That was it in the NFL. Pretty quiet. I wrote an article about my bold predictions for the AFC and NFC Championship game. It'll be posted, be published tomorrow morning, so check that out on FootballAnalysisOne.com. Boom, in the CFL, Saskatchewan Roughriders have signed national defensive lineman Lake Cordy Moore. Ottawa Redblacks have signed national defensive lineman Aiden John. Montreal Alouettes have signed American wide receiver Demore, something like that. Blankmc. They signed American defensive back Trey Jones III. Calgary Stampeders have signed national defensive lineman Michael Tights. Calgary Stampeders also signed American wide receiver Jordan Kerkey. Okay, and then Winnipeg Blue Bombers signed American wide receiver Keyshawn Smith, and they signed National Defensive Lineman Colin Cornelson. Okay, so that was in the CFL. I wrote an article this morning, yesterday afternoon, about the two most recent additions to the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the CFL, and that would be American defensive end Brian Ugwu, who ended up playing for Rutgers for several years, but then transferred to Miami, Ohio, and had a standout career there as a defensive end. He's 6'3", 256. He's now with the Tiger Cats, at least for training camp purposes. And then they signed American defensive back Caleb Hayes, who did play in the UFL for the Michigan Panthers. 6 foot, 195, played BYU, played Oregon State, spent some time with the Jacksonville Jaguars, New York Giants, Denver Broncos, Chicago Bears, and then he also played for the Michigan Panthers in the UFL. Okay. I wrote about both those guys on CFL News Hub yesterday, so check that out. Okay. All right. In the UFL, they got a lot of roster movement. So the draft was last week. The schedule is going to be released this week, tomorrow, theoretically. So we're going to be writing some articles about that. But there were a bunch of roster moves last night. So Birmingham Stallions have released linebacker Stone Blanton. DC Defenders have released offensive tackle Josh Ball. They've released defensive end Devin Bellamy. They've released wide receiver Grant Dubose. They've released strong safety Kai Nakua. They've released offensive tackle Nicholas Pettit Fro. They released defensive end Kyle Phillips. They released defensive tackle Niall Scott. They released interior defensive line Desmond Watson. A lot of moves made by DC Defenders to cut down on their roster already. Orlando Storm have released tight end Steve-O Klotz. I wrote an article about that this morning. And here's who's been added. So the DC Defenders, they released all those players and they added back punter Paxton Brooks, wide receiver Ja'Kai Douglas, and kicker Matt McCrane. So it's kind of filling in some gaps that they created by releasing all those players. Louisville, they have signed safety Corey Chapman and long snapper Jordan Silver. And the Orlando Storm have signed wide receiver D. Anderson, who played the UFL for Tampa Bay and for New Orleans. And then also he played for Memphis in the UFL and then eventually San Antonio Brahmas. So he's coming to the Orlando Storm. Speedy D. Anderson is his nickname, okay? Hope he's actually speedy. I'm sure he is. Birmingham Stallions have signed a bunch of players. Defensive tackle Ryder Anderson, linebacker Johannan Buchanan or something. That would be funny. Johannan Buchanan. Wide receiver Jabre Barker. Running back Snoop Connor. Defensive tackle Ricky Correa. Tight end Jude Wolf. Dallas Renegades have signed wide receiver Drake Stoops, who's a tight end. And defense coordinator, DC Defenders. I keep saying defense coordinator. DC does not always mean defensive coordinator. It means the District of Columbia. DC Defenders have re-signed defense tackle Joseph Wallace, punter Paxton Brady, and kicker Matt McCrane. And then Louisville Kings announced the rest of their coaching staff. So Steve Logan, if you don't remember, Chris Redmond, formerly a quarterback at Louisville, University of Louisville, and with the Baltimore Ravens, is their head coach. He's hired offensive coordinator Steve Logan and defensive coordinator Jamie Sharper, who also played for the Ravens. He's also hired wide receiver coach Tony Banks, who also played for the Ravens, quarterback for the Ravens. Tight end Jeff Kaczynski, who played tight end for the Ravens. There's a lot of Ravens on this Louisville team here in terms of their coaching staff. Offensive lineman Bruno Giacomini, he played for the Seattle Seahawks, won the Super Bowl. Defensive backs are Chris McAllister and then linebacker Brad Johnson are all coaches now for Louisville Kings. They have a lot of NFL players on that coaching staff with Chris Redmond. So we'll see if that's a recipe for victory or not. And the UFL, we also have former Birmingham Stallions quarterback Alex Magoo, who won 2 USFL championships. back-to-back. He is retired from football, so he's done his journey in professional football. And then IFL Tulsa Oilers have signed defensive lineman Niles Grody. Okay. In addition, late news here: the Seattle Seahawks have designated running back George Holani to return to practice before the Sunday's NFC Championship game to hopefully fill in for running back Zach Charbonnet towards ACL last week. So that is the news in the NFL, the IFL, the UFL, CFL, and I hope you enjoyed that. We will be going live on TikTok here in a few minutes once I get this video loaded, and it should be an entertaining time. Okay, that is it for Football Scientific today. We're going to close the portal. Drink W Energy. Check out FootballAnalysisOne.com for some NFL articles. Check out CFLNewsHub.com for some Canadian football articles. Check out UFLNewsHub.com for some UFL articles. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And let's blow this thing up. We're at 192 right now. We're going to close the Football Scientific portal.